Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. For anybody new joining, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. This is a weekly, almost weekly live stream where we talk about all the previous week's news and shooting topics, and you can get involved. There is a chat box if you want to have your opinions heard. If there's anything you think we should be talking about, any topics you want to bring up, then please feel free. I want to hear all sorts of views and opinions. There's really no wrong opinions, and you never know where the conversation is going to lead. For all you regulars, you know what the deal is, and thank you for returning. Don't forget as well, more importantly, hit that thumbs up button and make sure you are subscribed, because we try to do this every single week, and I try to share as much information and news as possible to keep you all in the loop. So I've always got a little bit of trepidation coming up to a live stream. Certainly if it's been a quiet week leading up to it, and you think, what are we going to talk about this week? And I have to say that this week was, one of those weeks. I was of course going to be talking about the Recoil Scotland match, which was absolutely fantastic. We will be talking about that later, but as of this morning, I was like, well, it's going to be pretty timid, nothing really going on. And then the Home Office just decided to cheer up my Thursday and give us lots to talk about. And there is lots to talk about. And we have a habit of doing this stream upon stream, sort of following and developing stories, because of course last week we were very much concerned with this, and I very confidently said that there is no way that they are going to get new legislation in by the autumn. For those, I'll bring it up on the stream so you can see it, and I'm not waving around a newspaper. No, that turned my camera off. Button next to it. Here we go. One of these days, I'll actually figure out what I'm doing, or what I'm meant to be doing. And let's find screenshot. There we go. So of course, this was all the big news, and this is what is following on. So I very confidently said that there is no way that they will be able to bring these in by the autumn. And within a week, we now have a consultation and a very big discussion, and it very much looks like there could be new legislation brought in by autumn. So thank you, Home Office. I suppose I have to be wrong sometimes. But the long and the short of this article and what we were talking about last week, of course, there was this article from Shooting UK about we're going to see lead shot coming to a head. Well, what we're going to be talking about tonight is nothing to do with this, but it could effectively be rolled in all at once if they're going to make legislation changes or changes to legislation. But of course, the big thing was that after Keyham and after the shootings up in Scotland, people have been pushing for a change in legislation, and we didn't know where it was going to go. And today we have got the best sort of indication of where they are looking and what is likely to change. But it's not all bad news. As the title of the stream will suggest, there have been some recommendations rejected. And they are actually some of the biggest recommendations. And a lot of people are talking, I saw comments saying, well, what recommendations? So from the sort of output of the Keyham shooting and the shooting up in the Isle of Skye, there have been recommendations from various bodies. So the consultation, and I'll be getting on the statement sort of rolls into the consultation, but this is sort of the real meat and bones of it. And I have to say that this is probably one of the best consultations that has been released in terms of the information that has been put forward with it and the explanation. But it's sort of no surprise, because people like Basque, we'll come back to the consultation in a second, people like Basque are hailing this as the most important consultation in 35 years. So you know what's coming. There is going to be 8 weeks, because it's an 8-week long consultation. And I am going to be pleading with you every single live stream, every single video, every single post to go and complete this consultation. I will be, here's a link for you guys. So there is absolutely no excuse there. You can go and fill that in. Just I would recommend going and doing it straight away. I will be getting a video out on this, maybe taking a little bit more time to understand it, formalize some answers, but we will be looking through it today. So yes, where have these recommendations come from? Or if we go back to the actual consultation particulars and the document, it states it quite clearly. Like, there is an abundance of really interesting, useful information in this. So where have the recommendations come from? So the recommendations to the Home Office have been made following 3 reports. The Prevention of Future Death report issued by Senior Coroner for Plymouth. We talked about this last week. There has been the report by the Independent Office for Police Conduct following its investigation into Devon and Cornwall's police's decision making in relation to giving somebody that was quite clearly unsuitable to be around firearms access to firearms, and also the report by the Scottish Affairs Select Committee following its review of firearms licensing regulation after the shootings in the Isle of Skye. So there have been this is why we've been quite concerned and not really understanding where things are going to go, because there's been 3 different bodies making 3 lots of similar but sometimes different recommendations. Now let's get into the good news to let's say lead the bad news. Some of the big recommendations that they were throwing about are not going to be implemented, and this comes down to the statement made today from the Home Office. So this is the Chris Phillip, the Minister of State for Crime, Policing and Fire. So he's obviously very involved in all of this, and let's just get to the real meat of it. So we've been giving careful consideration to the recommendations. While public safety is, of course, our chief concern, it is also right that our approach should reflect the fact that the vast majority of licensed firearms holders are law-abiding and cause no concern. It is this balance that we are seeking to strike in shaping our response. So this actually seems quite level-headed. It seems balanced on the face of it. They might be hiding an agenda in the back, but they've said it. There has to be a balance here. The majority of people that use their guns, that owns guns in the UK, never have an issue with the police, are upstanding members of society. So you cannot just tar and punish all of them for the actions of a few. And certainly when the actions of a few have been effectively you know they've been allowed by failings within firearms licensing. They've said that they are agreeing to provide £500,000 in funding to support the development and rollout of a new national training package produced by the College of Police and the National Police Chiefs Council. In due course, this training will become mandatory for police firearms licensing teams. This is this sounds really good. It's a nice sound bite. But actually, this isn't really going to achieve much. First of all, we still have great concerns over who has created, and while it says produced by the College of Policing, I'm fairly sure this is the training from Mulberry Partners, which is a load of ex-police officers, ex-chief of police, and ex-firearms licensing. And there is only one company in the running for this. So how do we know the training is actually fit for purpose? Where are the checks and balances? Why hasn't anybody else bidded for this training or is attempting to offer this training? It's a bit of a monopoly on the face of it. And I think it was something like the training was like £4,000 per person to do it, and £500,000 works out to something like under £10,000 per licensing department, or maybe just over. There's 42 licensing departments, I think. just off the top of my head. So 500,000 divided by 42, it's about £12,000. So based on that, and of course some are merged and some, some forces are bigger and smaller and all of that. But based on that, this funding is only going to, at maximum, allow 3 FEOs to be trained. So obviously the firearms licensing manager would need to be trained. That's one of them. And then what, maybe the deputy head or the head of RFDs and maybe one FEO. It's not enough. There's nowhere near enough to ensure that all decision making, or not necessarily decision making, but all people are part of the process in identifying potential risks or potential reasons as to why somebody is unsuitable. They all need to be trained to the same level. There's no point just having 1 or 2 in a department trained, because then you're going to get discrepancies, you're going to get differences. So there is going to be a review of the fees. We knew this was coming. We're estimating that the fees are going to go up to about 250 pounds, because they want to try and make us pay. They want us to cover the full cost of firearms licensing. And this is a little bit of misnomer. We talked about this last week, right? It's not down to us not paying enough. It's down to chiefs of police not allocating the required budget to firearms licensing to ensure an effective and efficient firearms licensing department, right? That's not our fault, right? They're trying to cut costs and all of that. Running a police department costs money, and it costs taxpayers money. So should everybody be paying their way? Should that? Well, actually, I wouldn't be necessarily against fining people when they end up in a cell for the taxi ride home and the night and sausage roll. But we are taxpayers. This is a process that is forced upon us. Should we be paying the whole of it? I don't think necessarily we should, but it does give us a very good argument going forward to say that we are no longer a drain on taxpayers. So this is really what obviously you want to know. What aren't they moving forward with? As I have said, public safety is our priority. At the same time, the measures to manage the risk to public safety must be proportionate and balanced with the fact that the vast majority of licensed firearms holders are law-abiding and cause no concern. It is for this reason that the government has decided not to proceed with recommendations on aligning shotgun and firearms legislation. This is really the big one. This is what everybody was worried about. And whilst I was trying to look at it like a silver lining, if we have a combined certificate, it's going to make it a lot easier for people to get into Section 1 shooting. But making it harder to get a shotgun certificate is only going to ever do damage to the sport. So this is, excuse the pun, I think the biggest bullet that we have dodged, and it hasn't even got into sort of the discussion phase. The Home Office has just gone no, and I wouldn't I wouldn't underestimate actually organizations like BASC, organizations like the British Shooting Sports Council, and representatives of various organizations and associations that have attended FELWIG meetings, and which is the Firearm Explosives Licensing Working Group. Don't underestimate the work that has been going on behind the scenes to make it abundantly clear to the Home Office that this is a firearms licensing issue, not a lawful firearms owner issue, right? So why start changing the legislation already existed there to prevent what happened in Plymouth, to potentially have prevented what happened in the Isle of Skye? They had all the justification and means to be able to keep away the certificates from those people. So completely ripping up the system and redoing it isn't really going to achieve much. And we're going to see some very interesting statistics of actually how significantly well our licensing departments can work and our laws do work in preventing crime. So shotguns are already subject to significant controls. The biggest worry with this as well is that it was actually going to cause more strain on a firearms licensing, and they need to be as efficient and free as possible at the moment. Um, this is another sort of sort of weird one. It doesn't seem that big on the face of it, but it would have given opportunities for some real shenanigans to be played. We have also considered carefully the senior coroner's concern that the wording of the legislation, and this refers to Section 27 and 28 of the Firearms Act 1968, creates a presumption in law in favor of granting a firearm certificate to an applicant being granted because it uses the words shall be granted, which might in some way impact on how the police assess that applicant's suitability. We do not agree that this effect or that this is the effect of the legislation. The legislation sets out specific conditions which must be met before licensing is granted. So again, I think this is a very fair, level-headed sort of look on things. Right, the way it is written, it is a shall be grant. If you meet the criteria and they don't believe that you pose a for a firearm certificate, they don't suspect that you pose a danger to the public or the peace, you have good reason and you are not a prohibited person, then you shall be granted a firearm certificate. You have met the criteria. There is no reason or justification for them to withhold that certificate. So there is a little bit of onus on that. The police is, the police should be looking to give certificates to people, but they need to check that they meet the criteria. However, it's not an automatic grant. It's not a shall issue like we have in the US. It's just more as long as it's met the criteria and there is criteria backing it up, so it doesn't automatically grant it. Now, where is this legislation and what I'm quoting? Well, let's have a look at sections 27. These are actually, it seems a little bit benign, but these sections are incredibly important. This is what allows us to have certificates. This is what will, you meet the criteria, you will be given it. So playing around with this could be incredibly dangerous. They could slip in all sorts of additional criteria. They could make it even harder. Just changing the wording just ever so slightly could really shift the balance. And let's not forget that the reason we have things like shall issue is because technically it is a right to have a shotgun certificate. Or I think it's actually a right to be able to obtain both a shotgun certificate and a firearm certificate, but it is a privilege to maintain it. So as long as you meet the criteria, you shall be issued it because it is your right to be able to have a shotgun or firearm certificate. But if you do anything that calls into question your suitability, then your privilege to maintain those certificates will be removed. So don't underestimate the significance of this not being played with. And of course, there's section 28, which is the same for firearm certificate. Shotgun certificate. The 27 is about firearms. 28 is about shotgun certificates. So again, I think very promising and overall quite balanced. Going back to it, other significant recommendations made to government will be the subject of an open public consultation, which is being launched today. I should emphasize that at the outset that no decisions have been made on these recommendations, and we are consulting to seek as broad a range of views as possible on what has been proposed. So we're not going to necessarily go read anymore because nice segue now into the consultation itself. I know a couple of people were saying that the link wasn't working. I'm just going to reshare that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the main landing page. So the link I'm about to put in, I'll just get it in there before I forget. Work, yeah, there we go. So this is the main landing page. So here at that link you can go through and what you will be greeted with is this page. Just a quick reminder for everyone watching, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed. It really does help the channel and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. So you'll be this is where you'll land, gives a little bit of description and prefacing, and then you have the link to the consultation. You can either respond there, or I think this takes you straight through there as well. And also the document that I've already shown, which there's loads of really useful information, including sort of a breakdown of every single question asked in the consultation. You can find that there. So everything you need to know is in that link. And what I will try to remember to do is, if you're watching this after the stream, if you're not watching this live, then I will try and remember to put this link in the comment section. So not in the live chat, it will be a pinned comment in the comment section, so you can go through and have a look. So first of all, again, why I'm really impressed, it sounds like I'm happy about this. I think there are some changes that are needed, but whenever they make changes, we always know that they're going to sneak some stuff in that's going to be really, really bad. And little bit of a let's say a spoiler: the first question posed on this consultation is really, really, really bad. But this document, it gives you all the preface. It tells you why they're doing it, what's been recommended, who's recommended it, what the process is going to be. There is a lot of fluff, there's a lot of blurb, but it gives you all of the information. And not only does it give you all of the prefacing, this whole background on firearms licensing and offensive involving firearms, the way this is written is that somebody with almost no, little, if not no information about firearms licensing and firearms ownership within the UK can pick up this document and actually get a fairly educated view of what things actually are by reading through it. And it's stats like this that I always like to keep refreshed on. But as of March, the 31st of March 2022, here are the ownership figures. So we're looking, what's that in total? Well, the thing is, it's a bit of a misnomer, because again, people own both shotgun and firearm certificates, but about 540,000 total certificate holders within England and Wales. Not entirely sure what that is for Scotland. You're probably looking, well, at least another 44,000 people, if not, maybe 50,000 people. So you're looking about about 600,000 certificates here. It goes into how many firearms are actually owned. I haven't seen up-to-date figures of this for a little while. I know it's floating there in the ether, and we're looking about 2.2 million firearms and shotguns in total owned here within England, Scotland, and Wales. So that, I've always thought it was around the 2 million. So it seems to have gone up a little bit. And interestingly, the average is 2.6 shotguns held on a shotgun certificate. I mean, those are sort of rookie numbers, and we should get those up. But that surprised me. I would always imagined it would be under 2. But from my memory of these figures last time, it seems that sort of people are owning more guns, which I think is great to see, because obviously they've passed all the recommendations, and if someone's got one gun, why does it matter if they have 5 or 10? Talk about certificates that have been revoked, but the offences, right? Again, it's been a while since I've seen an updated one of these. I could potentially go looking for it because it's the Office for National Statistics. But once again, preface this. It looks like the most offences are committed with imitation firearms, until, and bearing in mind there's a lot of push at the moment with blank firers and imitation, and the VCRA Act and all of that. There's been a lot of talk around that. Includes replica weapons and low powered guns which fire small plastic pellets, such as airsoft guns. So the imitation firearms, that's quite a wide field. Replica weapons, it's not just BB guns. Low powered guns, well, sorry, what is a low powered gun? Is that a Nerf gun? Is that a potato gun? Or which more fire small plastic pellets, such as airsoft guns, but not entirely. And of course, these guns aren't licensed, right? Anybody over the age of 18 could go into a shop with a valid defense and buy them if it's a RIT, a realistic imitation firearm. So this section is huge. In terms of actual firearms, okay, the uneyed, no, the other CS, gas, pepper spray, stun guns, and other weapons. Like, what we're really worried about, or what is more relevant to this discussion, is technically all the licensable live fire firearms, right? Your shotguns, your handguns, and your rifles. And no surprise, once again, out of those three, by a absolute country mile, it's handguns. Handguns are once again responsible by a significant margin, proportionately, for the offences. Right? Okay, when you look at this table, it's making up, 30%. But when you compare it to shotguns and rifles, the only thing here on this table that can actually be owned under certificates makes up 500. It makes up less than 10% of all of the offences. Whereas handguns, something that they banned, 1997, is still responsible for 30% of all firearms offences. And I just don't like how they've sort of, and unidentified. Well, sorry, if you can't identify it, you can't identify it as a firearm, can you? But still, the single largest proportion of offences of live firearms is due to handguns. And I think this is once again a shining example of why banning a particular type of firearm has absolutely no effect on reducing crime, right? If it was about private legal ownership being directly linked with firearm offences, then we would see shotguns through the roof. We would see rifles through the roof. But criminals don't care, right? Criminals are going to they're going to go and buy the guns that they want to go and buy. So it's always really interesting having this reconfirmed. When they say what we should do is ban pump action shotguns, you just show them this certificate, because it's going to make this certificate, these statistics, because it's going to make absolutely no difference. And again, in terms of the severity of firearm offences, okay, these are some pretty serious crimes, robbery, burglary, criminal damage, violence against another person, attempted murder, although there's no statistics there, assault with intent to cause serious harm and endangering life. Those are all really serious crimes, right? But the headline figure is always homicide, right? That is the worst outcome here. This is somebody losing their life and dying. And this really does just put it all into perspective that, in this 1 year, 31 people were killed with a firearm, right? And it's usually disproportionately weighted. Usually it's, I think on average it's about 20-25 homicides a year with a firearm, with only 1 or 2 of those involving a legal firearm. But if you use the proportion of the offenses to the homicides, then you're going to be looking, compared to rifles and shotguns, you're going to have the outright majority. Like it is going to be 25 of those are going to be, or statistically speaking, down to illegally held handguns, whereas a minuscule amount, again, 10% of that is going to be down to lawfully owned firearms. And the headline figure here is 31 people, right? Again, one person dying is too much. One person dying, before their time is too much, right? I completely get that. But in all the things out there that people are dying from, the fact that, was it last year or the year before? It was like 100 people had died in London alone by stabbings, right? So the disproportionate amount of attention that firearms get, go and spend that attention on knife crime. Go and spend that attention on speeding, on drunk drivers, because the amount of attention that is spent on firearms, the disproportionate amount of attention that is spent on firearms, would yield a much greater prevention of the loss of life in other areas. And it's just like, what are we actually trying to achieve here? We're trying to prevent the loss of life. And by distracting ourselves and spending a disproportionate amount of time focusing on firearms, we're actually allowing other preventable deaths from, from we're allowing other preventable deaths to happen, right? And what happened? We fine tune and we spend millions and millions of pounds making sure that, or tens of millions of pounds, really making sure our firearms legislation is ironclad. What are we going to see? Right, at best, what, a 50% reduction, right? So okay, so you've saved an extra 15 people a year based on this number. What happens if you have a 10% reduction in and let's go drunk drive deaths? uh, well, in the US, about 37 people a day die by drunk driving. So in 20 drink driving deaths, how many deaths are caused by drink driving UK? The final estimates for 2020 was 200. I'll bring up Google. 220 deaths, and this is from from .gov. So it shows that between 200 and 240 people were killed in collisions in Great Britain, where at least one driver was over the drink drive limit, with a central estimate of 220 deaths. So, you have a 10% reduction in drink driving deaths, you're going to prevent the loss of you're going to prevent more loss of life than even if you were 50% effective with firearms. That's so where should we be focusing our attention, right? On this 31 or the 220? Loads of other statistics. It's just, I'm super impressed here with the amount of the detail and the information. But of course, what we really want to see, and I'm sure what you really want to see, and I'm going to caveat this massively because, again, I haven't had a huge amount of time to go into this and really think about these questions. But I will be doing a video to, once I've had a bit more time to think, then I will I'll give more guidance and maybe more opinion on what you should write. But let's have a look. And they do preface it. So don't get mad at the questions or don't get mad at this document, because it's actually providing you a lot more insight and information than I've seen before. So this, I think, is the big one that a lot of people are really not happy about, right? A power of immediate seizure of firearms, shotguns, and ammunition. Whilst the police have powers to seize firearms, shotguns, and ammunition where there is an immediate threat to life, the coroner in the Keyham inquest expressed concerns that there is no statutory power for the police to enter property to seize firearms, shotguns, or ammunition where there was a justification for reviewing suitability to hold a firearm certificate, but where there was no immediate threat to life. The police currently rely on either voluntary surrender by the certificate holder or by seeking a warrant from a magistrate or sheriff in Scotland under Section 46 of the Firearms Act. If there is no immediate threat to life, the coroner pointed out to the public safety risks that could arise should a certificate holder not agree to voluntarily surrender or allow the police access to their property where the firearms are stored. Linked to any seizures and resulting review of the certificate is the additional recommendation that the police should have power to suspend a certificate temporarily. We want your views. We would welcome your views on the question below. Do you consider that the police should be granted a specific power of entry without a warrant issued by a magistrate or sheriff to be able to seize shotguns, firearms, and ammunition where there is a risk to public safety or the peace, and the certificate holder does not cooperate with the police and agree to voluntarily surrender? In association with this proposal, the police should be given the power to suspend certificates temporarily. Absolutely no bloody way. No, absolutely not. Nope, not having that. That is probably one of the scariest suggestions that I have seen in recent years on any of the consultations. Basically giving the police the power to enter your home at any time that they choose just because you own firearms. No, sorry. I understand the merit and the the onus on, firearms licensing and firearms certificate holders is unfortunately well above the legal burden of proof, right? Legal firearms owners have for so long been treated guilty um, before they are proven innocent, right? It's just, it's madness that this would then cement that. Not only is the bar so much higher for a firearm certificate above any other legal process or legal mechanism, but they're talking about giving them the police the rights to just kick in somebody's door. Where's, like, there should be more due process here, right? There should be more accountability of the police, not giving them more power to make fairly significant decisions on the fly just because they feel like it. Never mind the fact that they have the mechanism to already seize people's firearms if they feel that they are a danger to the peace or the public. It's called revocation. It's called revoking somebody's certificate. We cannot have this halfway house where it's like, oh, we don't feel that we've actually got enough to revoke this guy's certificate, but what we're going to do is kick in his door anyway because he's not going to voluntarily surrender them. Like, this, I don't think I have ever used this phrase before on the channel, because it sort of ties in with like conspiracy and Big Brother and all of that. And I'm really not that sort of guy, right? I don't really have a tinfoil hat stashed away somewhere, honest, right? But this is one of the most Orwellian bloody suggestions that I've seen in a long time. The power just to kick in your door, to completely bypass our courts, to completely bypass our warrant um, process. No, absolutely bloody not. That is a step too far in my book, especially when they already have the legal mechanism, right? There needs to be more accountability on the police's decision to revoke people's to revoke people's certificates. In my mind, there needs to be more support and more rights to people put in those positions. Certainly, more rights in for people that have been put in the position where they have voluntarily surrendered their firearms for the purpose of review, to only be kept in a holding pattern for 2-3 years because there actually exists no rights or mechanisms for the police to actually process a review in those circumstances, right? That needs to be closed off, not giving them more power, more autonomy, and more ways to completely bypass our legal system when a firearms owner is involved. Like, I'm sorry, it's, if somebody doesn't want to voluntarily surrender their firearms for review, firearms licensing and the police have nobody else other than themselves to blame for the shenanigans that they have pulled over the last 3 years, turning up to people's houses at 2 o'clock in the morning and seizing their gun without giving them any justification, any explanation. Being very sly and very cunning. in tricking people to thinking that they're having their licenses revoked when they're actually asking them to voluntarily surrender them without actually asking them that it's, you know, to voluntarily surrender. We're here to take your guns. Oh, okay, it must be a revocation. No, you know, so they've already been operating in this really grey area for so long. And this is just the absolute cherry on top for them if they get it through, right? There already exists the mechanism for the police to obtain a warrant if they feel that somebody is no longer fit to hold a certificate, because they're able to revoke that certificate. And this mention of a temporary to suspend a certificate temporarily, no, like absolutely not. You either ask them to voluntarily surrender for the purpose of review, or if you feel that strongly about it, you revoke. Because if you then revoke, you have the powers of appeal. This suspend a certificate temporarily, well, what's the definition of temporary? Is that a month? Is that 6 months? Is that 6 years? Can somebody challenge a temporary suspension? Right? Are there going to be the rights to appeal on a temporary suspension? No. Really, really do not like the sound of this question. So if you want your first guidance or suggestion on how you should answer these questions, this should be a hard no every single day. And I will try and, in a less ranty way, um, formulate a more succinct response other than Foxtrot Oscar, because that's all I want to write. I'm just like, are you actually insane? The police have already been abusing the voluntary surrender within our firearms law. This is just going to weaponize it even more. So, no. Oh yeah, it is actually, yeah, probably missing that. It is a yes/no answer. Actually, that makes it really simple. Again, I will say I haven't had a lot of time. Yeah, it is literally just yes, no. So no, absolutely bloody not. That is a hard no. So there really is. I apart from question number one, I am really, really liking this consultation. There is literally no reason for you not to complete it. You don't have to, well, you do have to think to it for a little bit, but it's a yes or no. You don't even have to write. How great is that? So of course, there is other comments which can always be suggested. So that's a no, right? Yeah. So actually, it's a really easy video for me to film. Just yes, no, 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 yes, no, yes, no, no, no. It's probably going to be something like that, or maybe it's just going to be no, 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 no. Have you lost your bloody mind? Where were we? So that is a hard no. There is just no justification with it. It will be used against us. This will have horrific consequences for firearms owners if it's brought in. So a hard no on that one. Do you consider that the prohibition on possessing firearms should be changed from one that is based solely on the length of a custodial sentence following conviction to one based more on the nature of the offence? So this is quite an interesting one, and I think initially you can look at it both ways. What they're saying here with this preamble is that things have changed significantly since 1968. Yeah, no shit. What else? Tell me something else I don't know. So things have progressed. Crime has progressed. Crime has changed. Our sentencing lengths have changed. Some would argue it's a bit too lenient as it is at the moment. But then you get into this. So yeah, on the face of it, yes, I think the severity of the offence or the nature of the offence should be taken into account. But then is one crime worse than another? In terms of, you know, an equal sentence, of course, there are more severe crimes and worse crimes. You know, that's why, you know, murder has such a high sentence. That's why certain large financial crimes have such high sentences, because they are quite serious, right? But that's defined in the length of the in the sentence. Of course, somebody that gets convicted to murder is never going to pass the bar in terms of not being a prohibited person. But what happens when you have, I don't know, like we can come up with all sorts of scenarios here, but somebody gets a 3 months sentence for not paying their taxes, right? Versus somebody that gets a 3 month sentence for bottling somebody in a pub, right? Okay, they've both broken the law. Okay, you can argue that both are not trustworthy. But are we really going to say that the person that has not paid their taxes and ended up in prison is as untrustworthy as somebody that has glassed somebody in a pub? You know, this is the sort of thing I think the nature should be taken into account, because you can get 6 month sentences for fairly benign crimes, if there is such a thing, victimless crimes, if there is such a thing as that. So, more, let's say, more white collar crimes, more financial crimes. Should somebody be treated the same in terms of being a prohibited person as somebody that has committed, you know, violent crimes? Again, both can be called untrustworthy because they've committed this crime. But is somebody that is evading their taxes, are they a danger to the public? Is that it's somebody that has committed a violent crime has been a danger to the public. So it's a very interesting one, and I'm gonna have a little think and maybe a little bit more discussion with other people before I fully cement. But at the moment, I could say yes or no for that. I could argue either way for it. We want your views on: do you consider that the renewal period, and this has always been a hot topic, do you consider that the renewal period, currently 5 years for a certificate, should be kept under review? If so, is renewal every 5 years the right period of time, or should it be changed to a shorter or longer period of time? And this isn't actually a yes or no answer. It gives you all of the potential options. Let's have a sorry, I know it's dizzying watching it, but let's have a look. So 5 years the current period, less than 5 years, more than 5 years. Now, of course, it's fair to say that we might be slightly biased and saying let's have it every 10 years because that sort of works for us. It also really works for firearms licensing. They would have less work to do in between. They would have maybe more um let's say more resources to do continuous monitoring, rather than let's be honest, there are going to be people out there that, like, for 60 odd years are never going to pose an issue, right? And every 5 years it's like the same thing. The FEO turns up and sits in the same couch and drinks from the same mug, eating the same bit, well, hopefully not the same packet of biscuits. And it's like, you're right, John. Yeah, I'm good. Have you done anything naughty the last 5 years? No. Are you still out there shooting the pigeons? Yes. All right, here's your license. And it's just, there are people out there that is just so matter of fact that they're going to get their certificates. And yes, everyone should be reviewed to some extent. But is it really a valuable use of time for the FEO sat there with good old John that's never had an issue for the last 60 years? Or would it be better spent sat in the firearms licensing department reviewing, looking up criminal records, well, not criminal records, but looking up people's records, going on people's social media? Again, very Big Brother, very Orwellian, I know, but actually proactive monitoring of certificate holders, not just routine every 5 years. And there's been a very good argument for more proactive monitoring and maybe lessening the burden of regular testing. So, on the flip side, you can say that a lot, 5 years is a very long time. People can go through very big changes within a 5 year period. People can go through a very big change within 6 months. So you're never going to get it right. But I think there's definitely an argument to prioritize proactive, regular monitoring of certificate holders rather than just a routine 5. So I would be probably in favor of extending it out to 10 years. And that does seem, or certainly longer than every 5 years. Certainly, if they're going to put the fees up, that is, I think, a really good compromise. If they're going to, take the fees from what, £90 for a conterminous certificate up to £250, but it's then a 10-year certificate, although the renewal fee is like 60, 70 quid, not 90. But yeah, if they double or triple it, but you have twice as long in between, that balances out. So firearms licensing end up with more money and less work to do. Like, that's a win-win. They can spend resource on other avenues. Question number 4. References. I really, if I'm going to be completely honest, I do think references the whole referee thing needs to change, right? Because you hear all these stories of some people saying their referees have never been contacted. I did find it odd that they made the change from uh, it had to be somebody of high standing, a civil servant, a doctor, to just anybody that you'd known for 2 years. So I think there could be some beneficial changes here. Do you consider that people applying for a shotgun certificate should provide 2 referees? Again, I don't think there's any real argument for no, right? Other than it's a bit of a ball ache to go and find someone else. If we're going to be real about it, if you're the sort of person that can't go and find 2 people that you've known for 2 years, I think that's maybe a potential warning sign about your personality, right? If you can't find 2 people that are going to be supportive, so is it going to actually prevent anything? Well, with the current system of referees, no. It would be meaningless to turn shotgun certificates into a 2-reference system, but they want to change this. Do you consider that at least one of the referees should be a person of certain standing in the community, of a professional background? Personally, I think yes. I think the sort of person that is being your reference should hold a bit of weight, right? It should be somebody with something to lose, right? The more that somebody has to lose, the greater their reference is, the greater the meaning is, right? Because you're not going to get the likes of solicitors and barristers um, putting their name on the line, or doctors putting their name on the line to be a reference if they have any concerns whatsoever. And in terms of civil servants and local government officers, they are some of the most risk averse people on this planet. So if you can get a civil servant or a local government officer to give you a reference, then they should just automatically issue you your certificate, because if they're willing to take that risk, then so should the police. Yeah, so this is how it was when I first applied for a certificate, and I don't necessarily think it should change. It does present a little bit of a barrier, but most people out there will know. Well, pretty much everyone in the UK. You have a doctor now. It does open up to abuse and doctors refusing to cooperate and making things difficult. But most people also know a civil servant or a nurse, and solicitors and barristers. But then you do have to know them. Officers of registered shooting clubs. This, I think, is potentially the direction that it should take. At the end of the day, if you are okay, shotgun certificates is slightly different, but in my mind, if you are going out there and shooting, be that rough shooting, be that game shooting, be that clay pigeon shooting, well, you're going to know people that are mentoring you, right? You're going to meet people at the club. You're going to meet people, the landowner that you are shooting on. There are going to be people, right? They're going to have to be people that approve of you shooting for you to go out there and shoot. So why not bring them into it? Because if somebody is happy for you to shoot on their land, if somebody is happy for you to be at their club shooting, then they should be happy to be a reference on your certificate. And certainly at club level, at target sports level, with firearm certificates and shotgun certificates, the people that are going to get to know you the best are going to be the people at your club. and your club is already involved in the process for target shooting applications for firearm certificates. Should playgrounds be more involved in shotgun certificate applications for the sporting applications? That's something I think would probably yield very good results, because we are an incredibly self sort of monitoring, self-policing society. Do you consider that referees should be able to demonstrate a good knowledge of the applicant's circumstances relevant to their suitability to possess firearm or shotgun? Yes. I'm sorry, a reference should be able to demonstrate that they know you, right? It does sound like I'm in support here of additional restrictions and barriers, right? No, the reference system in my mind is just, it's pointless as it is. If we're going to have it, then it should be more structured. It's it's a if you have it for a reason, then it should be capable of foreseeing that reason. Actually, Tom Thumb, yep, you're absolutely bang on. You are wrong about officers of local shooting clubs. They need to know you for 2 years. That means you can't get an FAC until you've been a club member for 2 years. Think about it. Yep, very big oversight on my part. Maybe I should go and get a job at a firearms licensing department or the Home Office. Yes, of course, people need to have known you for at least 2 years. We maybe leaning solely on officers of registered shooting club is a bad idea because of that. Maybe it should be 6 months. Maybe it should be, there should be an exemption for the officers of a registered shooting club, that it should be that they have known you for the entirety of your probational period, right? Or maybe just drop the 2 years. Maybe you should have one reference, which is a personal reference, that maybe should be somebody of high standing within our society, within the community, that has something to lose. So you have a personal reference that you've known for 2 years, and maybe we should have a club reference, right? Maybe the club should 100% on every application be a part of saying yes or no. They technically already are, so make them the actual reference or the referee. But yes, thanks, Tom. Good catch there. Do you consider that the application form should include a checklist for referees on the information that they should provide to the police, and require referees to provide a written declaration that they have disclosed all relevant facts to the police? Yes, a standardized form, just like with the GP form, I don't think is going to hurt anything. It also tells the references or the referees what they're getting into and what sort of information they're going to have to provide. I don't think that, again, is a necessarily bad thing. Do you consider that the statutory guidance should include more detailed guidance for the police on the information they should be looking to elect from referees? Absolutely. This, for me, is a hard yes. The statutory guidance the statutory guidance, I believe, they're referring to, is the assessing people's suitability. It's all very good, and it's a little bit more structured than it previously was, but there still are massive gaps in actually telling the police what they should be doing. It says stuff like, talk to their referees. Well, talk to them about what? Look at their social media. What are you looking for? Right? Are you looking for, bad jokes being made to assess somebody's suitability? Or are you, looking for extremism? And if you're looking for extremism, what is extremism, and what are the signs? What are the tick boxes, right? So yes, it should be more prescriptive, which actually comes into another point in a minute. Do you consider the police should look at the circumstances when individual change referees between application and renewal, and between subsequent renewals? That's a very, very interesting one. And actually, there could be a telltale sign. If you've fallen out with somebody in between your application, like, should the police know how you've fallen out with them? But then people fall out with people all the time for most benign reasons. It doesn't mean you're unsuitable to own firearms. And there actually are many good, honest reasons why you change your references. The amount of time between submitting my application and having my interview, and we're talking years, not months here. In that time, in that time, one of my referees was Connors, because at the time that I put in my application, I'd known him for 2 years. He probably knows me more than most, pretty much any person, probably even more than my wife. But then he's an RFD. So in that time, that's how ridiculous it is. Between submitting my application and having my interview, Connors was able to get an RFD. I've just heard what I've said there. Madness. But anyway, he was an RFD, so he was no longer valid as a reference. And since one of my references has actually become a police officer, but he at the time he wasn't, and he fit the bill and all of that. So yes, things change for really just, regular reasons. Your referees actually become unsuitable because they become police officers and they become RFDs. Maybe that's more likely to happen with someone like myself rather than an actual applicant. There's a lot of my friends out there that have RFDs, so it's sort of the world that I live in. But yeah, yes, maybe I think you might be chasing your tail on that one. Do you consider the sharing of unique application reference number by the applicant with their referees would make it easier for referees to report concerns they have about applicants for the police, to decline to give references, or for those who give references but subsequently become concerned that the applicant may no longer be suitable to have access to a firearm? Yeah, I don't think this is a bad thing. Again, if you're asking your referee to give you a reference, then you want it as easy to be as succinct and easy for them to do so. And in terms of, well, I mean, you would probably hope that you would pick a reference that is going to give you a good good reference. But also, I've heard it from other people with referees, where you ask your referee, you want to be a referee, will you give me a reference? Yes, you explain them the whole process, and then 6 months go by, they completely forget about it, and they get a knock on the door, or suddenly their phone rings and they go, hey, it's PC Plod here, or it's FEO John Smith. I want to ask you a few questions about so and so. Well, I'm sorry, if I get a call out of the blue from anyone asking me to potentially divulge personal information about a friend, I'm usually a little skeptical and a little standoffish. So maybe there's an unforeseen benefit of providing a unique reference number, which is they can confirm the validity of the FEO. They can confirm the identity of the FEO, and people know that they're speaking to a genuine person. They can phone up and go, I'm here, I'm going to give you the unique reference number. You then, you can't just make that up or find it through any other means. So it validates things and gives you more confidence to divulge potentially personal, identifiable, personal details. And actually covers more under GDPR. So yeah, that I think is a good move, actually, for other reasons than stated. What else? Do you consider that the content in the statutory guidance should be expanded and made more prescriptive in relation to suitability checks carried out by the police for firearm and shotgun applications and certificate holders? Now, on the face of it, yes, right? I'm completely in agreement with this. A firearms licensing department should have no interpretation, right? It should be the same process for every single person. You should know what you're getting into. You should know what bars you have to meet. And, again, well, we need to check his social media. Well, what are you checking for? Hampshire don't like comments from people halfway across the world being made on an open platform. Whereas I would say probably more reasonable departments are going to go, yeah, you sort of don't have a control about that. It's not exactly it's your own views. Even when there's comments being made on official Hampshire firearms and Hampshire police channels themselves. But anyway, I'm not here to get petty or anything. it doesn't need to be more prescriptive. It needs to be an A to Z instruction manual with no interpretation. So this I am completely in support of. Where it could, be careful what you wish for, and where it could be backfired, is if they end up making it prescriptive and known impossible to ever get a certificate. He must have never have looked in the wrong direction once, that sort of thing. So as long as the prescription is measured and fair, then I think it's a good thing. Do you consider that the balance of probability test is the correct test to apply in the statutory guidance to information about person suitability to hold a certificate? So this is something that I actually had to do a bit of research on myself. The balance of probabilities, basically within our legal system, the courts have to be confident that the likelihood of an event happening outweighs that of it not happening. So I guess it's the balance of probabilities is it the balance of probabilities that somebody is unsuitable versus them not, or the balance of probabilities that they would do something bad with a firearm versus not? I don't this is something that I'm going to research a little bit more. I don't fully understand the balance of probabilities, and I don't know how much interpretation is afforded in making this decision. If there's a lot of interpretation and it's very grey and murky, then I think no, that shouldn't be the way. It again needs to be sort of cast iron. This whole airy fairy thing of, oh, you can use the fact that somebody's been to court and has been has been accused of a crime, can be used even if they're found innocent in the court. Do you consider that neurodevelopmental disorders should be added to the list of relevant medical conditions in the statutory guidance and application form? So what sort of things are we talking about here? I mean, in terms of let me just see what that would actually include. I'm not a doctor. Relating to or involving the development of the nervous system. What are the 5 neural developmental disorders? Communication disorder. Oh, it's okay. Autism disorder, ADHD, tic disorders, specific learning disorders. So would that actually cover dyslexia? Let's right. Here we go. Good old wiki. Wiki should never be a cast iron reference, but it will help me here. ADHD, developmental language disorder, communication special language, autism spectrum disorder. To be honest, autism I thought was already something that they would have covered. Intellectual disabilities or intellectual development disorder, previously called mental retardation, and global development delay, motor disorders, movement disorders. So it's like Tourette's, specific learning disorders like dyslexia or dyscalculia, neurogenetic disorders such as Fragile X syndrome, Down syndrome, Rett syndrome, traumatic brain injury. To be honest, a lot of this should already I'm sorry, as unfair as it may be, to make it harder for people with disabilities, right? If you've had a traumatic brain injury, I think that is maybe quite significant to the assessment of your ability to safely hold a firearm. Dyslexia and dyscalculia, I'm sorry, like the worst that's going to happen there is you spell something wrong on your application form, or you I guess with um, dyscalculia, you might lose count of how many guns you have. It's just like, oh crap! I thought I had 10. I've actually got 15. Where have the other 5 gone? But and I can take the piss out of dyslexics because I am one. So no one got on your high horse there. Yeah, that's a little bit of a odd one. I mean, yes, to cover. I do think somebody with autism isn't automatically a risk, but if it's severe autism, then it may affect their ability to understand, say, the seriousness of what they're doing. Again, I'm not like an autism specialist. Um, it's something that may affect your perception of right and wrong. Again, I don't know necessarily if that is actually something with autism, but something that a traumatic brain injury, anything can anything can happen to your brain through a traumatic injury. Ryan H, ADHD might you might become hyper focused on improving your shooting and loading the best ammunition. Yeah, there's some in there that I don't think perhaps in the worst case with ADHD, like you don't pay attention, you don't you might make rash decisions or not take in full range safety that might provoke might present an issue. So yeah, I mean, in terms of Tourette syndrome, I don't think that's an issue. Of course, like a physical tick potentially could be dangerous, but you just follow the golden rules of it. It doesn't matter if you tense up and fire off around unintentionally, and I know exactly what I've just said there. Yeah, it's fine. You just ND whenever you want. If you are following the golden rules of shooting, if somebody has got a gun up in their shoulder, finger on the trigger because they're about to shoot a flying clay, and they have a physical tick, and they suddenly jerk the trigger, well, as long as the gun is pointed in a safe direction and is not, you know, certainly isn't pointed at something that they're not willing to destroy, and as long as their ability, again, this is why I guess it needs to be assessed. Do they have the ability to keep their finger off the trigger until it is safe to fire? If somebody has a physical tick so severe that they could end up putting their finger on the trigger in an inappropriate situation or an unsafe situation, then perhaps that is something that could make them unsuitable to be able to own or be in possession of a firearm. So yeah, I think overall, maybe not all. Nora, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go here. Yeah, perhaps not all neurodevelopmental disorders are relevant, but I think there are potentially some, and that could be relevant. And the best person to make an informed decision of whether it is relevant is the GP. But of course, all they do is they tick a box, and then the police have to make that decision. And what ends up happening is if you've got somebody that's dyslexic, you technically have a developmental disorder, and the GP ticks that box, and somebody doesn't understand what dyslexia is within the firearms licensing department and goes, well, you've got this disorder, so we're going to refuse you. So again, I think there needs to be prescriptive. There has to be certain ones that are flagged, and then again, there has to be a prescriptive way of either you let the doctor do it, which I think is the most sensible. I don't know why the police are making calls on people's medical records. That should be down to the doctor. But the police are making the calls medically now with a firearms license, firearms certificate application. So they're not medical professionals, so it should be very prescriptive. It should tell them exactly what they need to do. Um, Aaron T, not everyone knows lawyers or high standing people, especially the working class. I moved address recently, and the last time I saw my doctor was a year ago. Don't make it elitist. Yes, I do understand. And I don't want to see any further barriers. I just think, there's a danger that if there isn't some level that a referee needs to meet, a bar that a referee needs to meet, then again, what is the point of having a referee? If it's, just your mate down the pub, and you're gonna, you're gonna treat him to a couple of pints for being your reference, what's the point? Of course, you give me a good reference, I'll pay for a round of drinks. You need somebody that really, for the reference system, I think you need somebody that isn't necessarily open to persuasion or peer pressure or whatever, or you just scrap the reference system entirely, because otherwise it just becomes useless. Again, that's why I think, well, again, if you have officers of the club, then it's going to take you a lot longer to get to know them for 2 years. There's definitely going to be some sort of happy medium. And no, for 1 second, I do not want it harder for people, and I don't want it being elitist. Like, that is far from it. I love the fact that you can go to a shooting range, certainly practical shooting, right? And you have people from all backgrounds. I love that about shooting, right? You don't have the same types. You do tend to have a disproportionate amount of like engineers, but I think that's more the mechanical mind. Certainly within practical shooting, it's the analytical mind that appeals to. But yeah, I love the diversity within our sport, and I think it's one of our biggest assets. It does tend to be quite male heavy, but there's a lot going on to change that. Do you consider that GP's engagement with firearms licensing process should be mandatory? 100%. And I think it should not only be mandatory, but there should be a statutory duty. The GPs should not be able to refuse to engage with it, and there should be punishments and sanctions if GPs do not do it fairly and accurately, just because they don't agree that people should have guns. Do you consider that intra-medical checks should be made on licensed firearms holders between the grant of the certificate and application to renew? No, on the face of it, just initially, no, because with the flag system, if the GPs are doing their jobs, if something relevant comes on to somebody's medical history, that should be automatically sent to the police. That's what should have happened with Jake Davison, and the Plymouth shooting. So, no, it's not necessary to have interim reviews. You just need to use the flag system. Do you consider that the digital marker for use by GPs on the medical records of licensed firearms holders should be visible to other health professionals? We talked about this last week, and not every medical health professional, right? I think GPs and maybe psychologists. But yeah, it shouldn't be a free for all. Like, all of these people having access to your records. So, because the thing is, people could have issues that they go and seek help for that is relevant to their medical records, but the health professional doesn't have access to their medical records. But then if they don't have access, then they wouldn't be able to see it anyway. It depends. Because they've been a bit vague, because they haven't specified which professionals, I think it's a no for me. I think there's potentially too much abuse that could come out of that. Do you and also, again, the bigger issue is that people then, certificate holders don't go and seek help, right? People don't, they can't go and talk to certain medical health professionals out of fear that they're going to have their certificates revoked. It's far more important. I know it sounds sort of crazy, like, if somebody's mentally unwell, it's more important for them to get help than take away their firearms. But I think it is, right? I'd rather somebody that is mentally unstable feels able to go and get help than not go and get any help at all because of fear of losing their guns. Like, what would you prefer? Somebody to just bottle it up and not seek help, or actually go and try and deal with the issue without fear of losing their certificates? That's for me the most important aspect. So yeah, no. Do you consider there should be more mental health advice and support for licensed firearms holders through, for example, advice leaflets and other such support? Yes, absolutely. I think there's a complete void of help and advice and support. There should be advice, in my mind. There should be advice and support without fear of losing your certificates. Right? That should be, that would, in my mind, make a huge, huge difference. Do you consider a specific phone line should be introduced in addition to services already available to report concerns about a licensed firearms owner? No, that's just a waste of taxpayers' money. It's a waste of time in my mind. We already have 101 and 999. If you have a serious concern about somebody, everybody knows those numbers. How, in principle, should any specific phone line be funded, public funded, or other source of funding? I don't think any funding should be given to it. I think more funding should be given to the training of firearm inquiry officers than a dob in a certificate holder. Do you consider that it would be better to raise awareness of existing avenues open to? Yes. Like, I mean, I'm sorry if you're the sort of person that wants to make a complaint or raise concerns about a certificate holder, and you can't work out that you can phone 999 or 101, I think the validity of your concerns should be somewhat diminished. And I think that is it. Next steps. The government has made no decisions yet on the recommendations on which we are seeking views. We will carefully consider the responses received to this consultation with regards to the recommendation made on legislation. If government concludes that legislative changes are necessary, the government will consult formally on specific legislative. I said it right the first time. Legislative, there we go, proposal. See, dyslexic as fuck. Accompanied by assessments of the impact of those changes on all potentially effective. If ministers decide to consult, this public consultation is likely to be held later in 2023. So again, are we going to see laws brought in by the end of the year? Probably not, certainly if they do other consultations. Other changes, such as revisions to the statutory guidance, agreeing new fees for licensing, and the other related work to give effect to other recommendations, will be taken forward in 2023 as far as possible. So yeah. You have 8 weeks, and I don't want to hear it. I am seriously going to explode on the next person I hear that goes, and I'm sure I can say probably without doubt, mostly without doubt, that there has already been somebody said it. What's the point of responding to the consultation? They've already made their mind up. It's not going to do anything. They are trying to make it, like, whether you believe them or not, okay, fair enough, right? But they are trying to make it abundantly clear that there have been no decisions made, right? This is quite literally a chance for us to be able to shape the future of firearms licensing, the future of lawful firearms ownership, right? I don't care whether you think they're going to listen to you or not, right? Because they're certainly not going to listen to you if you don't fill out the consultation. If you don't, like, you have 100% chance of of having no voice, of having no say if you don't go and answer those questions, right? You have an infinitely larger chance of your voice being heard and us having a say of how things move forward if we answer the consultation. I do not want us in 8 weeks time, or whenever they release the figures, want to see another 1,600 or 2,500 people submit a response, right? There is absolutely no justification to have anything less than 600,000, or how many people in total it is, right? There should be 500,000 plus people responding to this consultation, right? And even more when you take into account airsofters and people that rely on imitation firearms. It's mentioned, right? There's information is included on that. It should be airgun shooters. There should be millions, not 500,000. There should be millions of people responding to this. If you go out there and in any way in any capacity, go and pull a trigger and fire something out of a barrel at something else, whether or not it's even legal what you're doing, you should be responding to this consultation, right? I don't care. If you are going out and pulling a trigger in any form, you should be responding. And there are millions of people that every single weekend go and pull a trigger on some kind of gun, right? This affects all of us, no matter what you shoot at, no matter what you shoot, no matter what area of the sport you're in. Everyone should be responding. Like, seriously, if I don't know what the number is, but I will probably feel disappointed. I mean, Basque membership is apparently 150, probably more around 100 now. It should be every Basque member, right? There's no excuse. Basque have that membership database. They can push it out via email. They can push it out on social media. They can put it in their magazine. It should be talked about. We haven't got time to put it out in any shows, but there should be 100 at a bare minimum. There should be 100,000 responses. Like, and I cannot see any justification as to why there wouldn't be. So do it. Don't come up with your excuses. Just go and respond to it. And as I said, I will be doing a video, around the 10-15 minute mark, really trimming the fat. We've gone and I would say we've had a discussion of more just rambled on for an hour and a half. But I will be making something a lot more concise again, I need to have a think and maybe a bit of research of some points. I also will have a look through. I haven't had a full look through of what you guys are saying. So yeah, see what you think of your responses. Like, let me know if you're watching this afterwards. Put what you think. What would you answer it? Literally go down like 1 through to, what was it, 17, 18, and say what you'd put that in the comment section, right? Put the number and how you would respond to it, right? And if you feel that you're being what's the word? Yeah, I'm very, very tired. Well, I want to say conservative. No, controversial. If you feel you're being controversial, explain why. Put it next to it. Maybe one sentence of why you think it should be. And I will read through it all, and I'll take everything into account. So yeah, we have the opportunity to have our voice said. We love complaining that the police and Home Office don't listen to us. This is our opportunity. So again, respond to it. And again, I'm going to put the link in. For anybody who goes, where's the link? Follow this link and you can go and respond. Send. Why are you not working? For some reason, Restream is deciding not to play ball. So it's fine. I've got my backup. I'll say I've got my backup. It's not working. So you can fill out the consultation there. Anyway, that's it. Of course, it is sort of big news. That's why we spent so long talking about it. But I do want to get on to some very positive news. Personally, for me, anybody that's not interested in practical shooting, you may exit stage left now. So obviously this weekend was Recoil Scotland's Scottish Master. I mostly enjoyed mostly enjoyed last year, other than the utter bullshit that I had to endure of people thinking that they knew the law. Fortunately for me, the Police Scotland were there, and they were more than happy with my participation in the match. So it was very interesting that those that had quite loud opinions last year of what the law were seemingly very quiet this year, having Police Scotland completely counteract them. It's like, I mean, I have been telling them that I basically eat, sleep, eat, live and sleep, eat, breathe and sleep. There we go. Firearms law. Um, you know, it's sort of a bit of a necessity to my career. But anyway, you know, people that drive lorries for a living apparently know more about firearms law. But there we go. Moving on. Positive. That's right. Positive. Um, so it was an incredible match. So I actually got to obviously shoot it to its fullest this year using a Section 1. For those of you that don't know, that's an unrestricted capacity shotgun. And despite the fact that I still manage 50-60% with a Section 2, it does severely limit you, and you're never going to be fighting for the win. And to my surprise and pleasure, I managed to finish fourth overall. Fourth overall, fourth in standard. So of course we have different divisions in practical shotgun: open, modified, standard, manual, and standard. And it's not really fair putting a box-fed semi-automatic shotgun in the same class as somebody using a pump-action tube-fed. So we have our different divisions, and I came fourth in division, which I'm very, very happy with. Slightly annoyed that one really silly mistake actually cost me quite an easy third. And it was one of those mistakes that there is no excuse. I ran past an aperture. I don't have it in myself at the moment to actually show that footage. So we're going to be looking at stages that went a lot better. And the annoying thing is that would have been another stage win, 100%. And I still set a very competitive time, even having to run back on the stage and engage some targets that I completely chose to ignore. So a little bit frustrated about that. But yeah, fourth overall, and standard was a huge division. I think it's like the biggest proportion of standards of like it's been the biggest division. It's been the most people in standard for a very, very long time. So it was a lot of people, very competitive, and there were some very, very good shooters there. And just everything hooked up. I loved the match. Absolutely loved the match. The range crew, the members of Recoil, you are what make that match, right? Quite literally, and also talking to you guys and hanging out. Fair play. And I loved the construction. Matches have different flavors. There's a lot that can tend to be very, very technical, and it's all about the manipulation of the gun and loading very quickly, and from an option 3 start, and just very technical, right? All about precise footwork and all of that, and that is all part of what we do in practical shooting. But this was far more like run and gun. It was moving efficiently across the stage, engaging targets quickly, some good running, and I wanted to show some of the stages. So the largest stage of the competition was the Fort Recoil. So it's 28 targets using birdshot only. I managed fifth in standard for this at 88%. Again, watching it back, I think there was some time lost, but this was a phenomenal stage. It was just, I love shooting just long stages where there's there's loads of loading, there's loads of movement, and this was a very interesting. These targets are quite far away, so I sort of slip here, lose a little bit of time getting the gun in the aperture. My mistake on these, it all went fairly well, but I'm in the aperture too much, and that just slowed me down getting sort of in and out. Yeah, I shouldn't be that far in because I'm losing time getting the gun out of there. But so far going 1 for 1, should have maybe been a bit more efficient with those. They could have been engaged from one spot. So here, actually, you've missed further tweaks required to the gun. We are trying some fairly new sort of innovative modifications to this gun, which is why we want to be testing it, why we want to be proving it in competition. And basically, it's all around the latch on the M2 Field, and the latch was very, very sensitive. So if you didn't load it absolutely perfectly, it would flick cartridges back onto the latch. So this is where I lost a bit of time, some tweaking with a gun, maybe some perfecting of my loading. So I go to do a quad, I get 2 in. The lifter locks up because it's got a cartridge on there, shoots back onto it. So I have to discard 2. So I know I have to put another 2 in there, and I end up doing it here. So that cost me time, and then I miss, which almost cost as well cost me time. And this end bit, I don't think I did this the most efficiently. I should have just done a big U rather than going, left, what to do? Left, right, no, right, left, right. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just gone just a big U. So I think there's easily sort of 3 to 5 seconds if I was to do it again that I could probably make up. But that's not the case. This one, I hate buckshot. I have to be completely honest. I just don't have that much experience with buckshot. And I was dreading this stage all day. This is the sort of stage that I tend to usually just cock up massively. And to my surprise, I took the stage win in standard, and I think set the second fastest time of any other competitor on this. So yeah, you can see basically the gun is option 2, so it's loaded, but there's not one in the chamber. There's one sat on the lifter, so you just have to rack it to get going. Foot on the shovel, grab the gun, go up the ramp. I think it's a plate popper, no, 7. So I think it's plate popper, a bobbing target, popper, plate. And the timing of this just went superb for me. So it's the poppers that end up activating that target. And the timing was perfect for me. So it really helped getting that. And it just felt good. And you can see I do a little lean to look at the target. I'm like, did I get it all on there? Because with buckshot, you need to get 2 in the A. So obviously very happy with how that stage went. And this for me is the piece de resistance. This is probably one of, if not the best stage that I've ever shot in my life. It's not perfect, but the way this stage went for me was it just flowed. And there's sort of a point where you just switch off, right? If you've done your training, if you know what you're doing, you should technically be on like autopilot, right? You shouldn't be thinking about loading. You should just be doing it. You shouldn't be thinking about your footwork. You should just it should just be part of the plan. And I knew that this was the second largest stage, so a huge amount of points for this stage can really make or break a match. 26 targets, bird shot. This is the stage that I spent a lot of time thinking about prior to getting there, seeing it, seeing other people shoot it, and I was planning this mentally in my head. And when I turned up to shoot it, I just I wasn't changing my plan. My plan was in my head. It was all confirmed, and I just knew what I was going to do. And that allowed me to not worry about, oh shit, where's that next array? Where's that? And I knew where everything was. And I could just sort of go on the autopilot, and it felt good. I got the stage win as well. And it's just, yeah, this stage I will remember for a very, very long time. And of course, it's my favorite kind of stage. A lot of running, a lot of moving, shooting targets quickly. I don't think there was a single no shoot on the stage. So it's just full chat. The one thing that was slightly disappointing about this stage, you can see it's very muddy and very slippery. So that did slow everyone down, but it was a fairly even sort of handicap. So I do look a little bit silly prancing around, but it's me trying to not stack it. But yeah, by far, I think the favorite stage of the day, and it's an awesome stage. You're manipulating the gun on the move, you're shooting quickly, you're loading. I got another round on the lifter there, so had to I planned to do a quad, but I actually banged in another dual load there. Just one for I think I went 1 for 1 on every single target. You've got a swinging target here activated by popper. Again, just everything, the timing of that was perfect. Try not to stack it. It's it gives me the tingles. Here actually is probably where I lost a little bit of time. So maybe not getting the round on the lifter, and there, and it seems silly that you go over a stage to this degree. Oh god. This is the sort of thing, this one thing. So the lifter probably cost me half a second because I'm not excited. I lost there, but also for some reason I decide to step in. So I've come in here by the tire. I should be stood here. Like, that's just gonna get in my way, and I think the reason I did that is because I kept on the walkthrough, I did keep sort of running past the point where you could see these targets. So I think that was sort of a subconscious thing to ensure that I stopped and I could definitely see the targets from there. Now, did that cost me a load of time? Well, it's extra movement because I've had to move in there and I've had to then move out of there. So it doesn't seem, but could have been half a second. So, I could have taken another second of that time, and that would have given me more percentage. That can make a difference overall. But yes, incredibly, again, happy with the performance. But the match was just absolutely fantastic. And there's a video of me shooting a full auto Desert Eagle. It'd be rude not to watch it. Yeah, there we go. Just casual Desert Eagle. And I have to say, a man of his word, right? This isn't actually it. There's a bit of a story here, right? And I know you're probably going, "Oh, why are you showing me a picture of fish and chips, Callum?" That's not fish and chips, right? And that is not a battered sausage. So fair play to Mr. John Prunty. When he first told me that Recoil would be doing their first level 3, I said, if I'm coming that far up to Scotland, 7.5 hours from where I live, because I literally can't live any further on the south coast without moving to the Isle of Wight. If you're making me coming all the way up to bloody Glasgow, then I want to tick eating a deep fried Mars bar off of my bucket list. And what didn't he help me tick off my bucket list last year? That's right, a deep fried Mars bar. So this year I said 100%, another 7.5 hours, I'm having my deep fried Mars bar. We end up meeting up at a fish and chip shop Saturday night, only to find out that the fish and chip shop is closed, and we ended up calling it off. And I thought, there we go, another year, another disappointment, but I'm used to it. And we went back to the hotel. And fair play to Mr. Prunty. It did not go unnoticed, and it will not be forgotten. He ended up driving around the outer skirts of Glasgow, finding because to our surprise, not every fish and chip shop does deep fried Mars bars in Scotland. I thought that would have been law, right? Drives around to find a deep fried Mars bar, and we get a call. It's like, I don't know, 10 o'clock by this point. I've got your deep fried Mars bars. Come and get them. I'll come and meet you at the hotel. So he drove all the way, then drove to our hotel, and I haven't got it on the on my computer, but there is us and a surprisingly happy looking Connors. Sat outside the Premier Inn, enjoying all of our first deep fried Mars bars. Again, I thought it was, part of the Scottish christening that you'd, as a baby, as a Scottish baby, you'd eat a deep fried Mars bar. But John had never eaten one before. And then after Connors and I being reasonably happy with how the match went, we thought, well, seeing as, in my mind, the deep fried Mars bars are worth the hype. If you have the chance to eat one, do it. They're like crack. We will celebrate and go back to this fish and chip shop that was shut previously and go and have their deep fried Mars bar to see if they could get any better. And when we tell John this plan, he goes, well, if you're trying things out of the deep fried variety, why don't you try a pizza crunch? I'm going, sorry, what the hell is a pizza crunch? Well, it turns out that a pizza crunch is a deep fried pizza. So yes, we went for the full Scottish experience, and we ended up signing off our trip to Scotland with a deep fried pizza and a deep fried Mars bar. And just you can see it just hiding. Of course, because there wasn't enough carbs in that. The deep fried pizza came with a portion of chips. No wonder the life expectancy up there is slightly lower than down here. And I'll have to say, I would definitely recommend ticking off a pizza crunch once in your life. I think what I said to Connors when I took my first bite was something along the lines of, I don't know whether to vomit furiously or go and buy another one. It's yeah, the deep fried Mars bar, 100%. If you don't like a deep fried Mars bar, you've got something wrong with you. Just wait for them to cool down first. That's probably the best piece of advice. Pizza crunch, yeah. Batter, salt and vinegar, pizza, tomato, cheese. It's a very weird, it's all flavors that I like. Just still can't decide. I mean, they go, but it's a very confusing eat. You will be confused eating it, I can assure you. But anyway, thank you, John. Really appreciate it. And again, a big, huge thank you to everybody at Recoil that made that match possible. Without the ROs, without people building the stages, without stats officers, without the amount of work that goes into running these matches is absolutely insane. So the dozens and dozens of people that made that match possible, thank you. You've done another fantastic job. I was blown away what you were able to achieve last year in your first level 3, and you've kept it up. It's not just a fluke. You've managed to, I think, raise the bar again. For me, it wasn't like last year was a bad match at all. But this was so much more of a sort of a me match, my sort of style, running and gunning, run to a place, shoot really quick, run to another place, really shoot, with some technicality thrown in there as well to boot. And none of the stages were boring. And that is, when you put on a 14-stage match, it can be very difficult to make every single stage exciting, and every single one was. Every single one, there were a couple where it was like, yeah, there's only one way to shoot this, but a lot could still go wrong, right? But a lot of the stage, a lot of them, there were multiple ways to shoot it, and to do that takes a lot of thought and a lot of effort to really challenge you mentally on a stage, and a lot of them did that. So again, thank you everyone at Recoil, and again, I can't wait to see what you do next year, and I hope you do continue to put on these high quality matches. I can't wait until you add mini rifle. You start doing mini rifle up there, because that's going to be epic. And I would prefer if you were maybe like 5 hours further south. If you're anywhere near Scotland, go and check Recoil Scotland out. Super bunch of people. They are so passionate and driven about furthering the sport and getting more people into it. You will be made to feel welcome, as welcoming as Scottish people can be. They and if you want to know where to go and get a battered Mars bar up there, or a pizza crunch, just ask John Pronti. So yeah, that is, yeah, that I was a little bit shell shocked coming back after driving 7.5 hours and getting home at 5 o'clock in the morning. But the pizza crunch was worth it. But yeah, everything was sort of a bit of a blur. But reflecting on it now, I'm going to remember that weekend for multiple different reasons, all positive for a very, very long time. And you know, you get to a point where I'm fortunate to sort of shoot as many matches as I do. Like, some of them do get forgotten, right? There's the facts of it, but this one is a standout, 100%. And I'm going to be. I don't know how many times I've watched that helicopter stage. Yeah, it just makes me smile every time. But there we go. I think I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let's see if I can be reasonably proficient in. There we go. Stop sharing there. I worked it out last week on the stream. I'll see if I can have the same luck this time. Yeah, there it is. It's worked. It's sat there ready to go. Apologies. I haven't spent actually that much time like looking at your comments. It's just a lot of reading and paying attention to where we're on the consultation. And I have been reading what you guys have said. You know, what cartridges do we use? So we actually switched for this match. We're now using Hull Superfast 29-gram 6s or 6.5s. We'll probably I'll do a video with Connors about that. We were very, very happy with the performance. We've been using Ely Alpha Elite, which is a 28-gram 7.5. I had technically already switched to a 32-gram 6. That was to get the section 2 actually semi-working. But I actually have a fairly good understanding now of the whole, you know, in terms of practical, why is it important to go for a 6 over a 7.5? And you know, the 29.6, you get sort of like the best of both worlds. It's not huge recoil, but you have that knockdown factor, which is you want to be sure of, and we saw that. And the patterning of the whole Superfast was very, very good. Even though you do need to gauge it because the quality isn't quite as good, I think, as Ely, and you get a lot of pellets or BBs sticking out of, not physically sticking out, but like protruding from the shell. Anyway, I'll be doing a video on that because it's quite a major thing to switch ammunition, seeing as we've been using Alpha Elite. I mean, we helped develop the Alpha Elite. But yes, yeah, apologies again, haven't quite kept up on the chat box, but I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. Before you all head off, make sure you've hit that like button. It literally takes 2 seconds. It's free and it makes a huge difference to the channel. Thank you everybody for watching as always. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back. I will double check my calendar. Don't want to make any promises I can't keep. Yep, we will be back next week, same place, same time. I hope you all have a fantastic week, hopefully, and weekend full of shooting. And of course, as always, guys, I hope to see you soon.